The Kryptorian Empire blasted the Plaxan homeworld with death rays, disintegrating millions of screaming innocents within seconds, with no one left to stop their galactic reign of terror. No one, until humanity answered their call. The United Earth Space Fleet usually avoided war, but leaving the peaceful Plaxans to die was not an option. Not anymore. Captain James Hawkins of the UESF Relentless gripped his command chair, knuckles white, as chilling images flooded the view screen. Plaxans vaporized, cities razed, continents burned, women and children fleeing, only to be cut down. The Plaxon distress beacon would reach no one else in time. It was up to Hawkins, up to Earth, up to humanity. If Hawkins failed here, the Kryptorian death machine would consume the Plaxans completely, then rampage unchecked across the stars. Entire species would be enslaved, civilizations erased. Hawkins had his orders: avoid the Kryptorians. But some orders were made to be broken. The Relentless banked hard as her crew prepared for battle. The wrath of Earth was coming, and the Kryptorians would learn to fear it. The Relentless shuddered as Kryptorian death rays slammed into her shields. Consoles sparked, crewmen were thrown to the deck. The view screen flickered with static, but the Relentless held together. She had to. "Evasive maneuvers," Hawkins barked. "Target their weak points." The helmsman's hands flew across the controls. The Relentless jinked and juked, narrowly evading the worst of the barrage. Her own guns roared in response, hurling shells and missiles at the Kryptorian fleet. Explosions blossomed along the enemy hulls. Hawkins watched the tactical display. The Kryptorians had numbers and firepower on their side, but the Relentless had superior targeting systems and ablative armor, reverse-engineered from salvaged alien tech. It gave them an edge, a slim one, but Hawkins would take it. "Sir, I'm detecting a fluctuation in their shields," the tactical officer reported. "Sector 14B. Hawkins pounced on the opportunity. "Concentrate fire on that sector. Punch a hole through their defenses." The Relentless's weapons hammered at the weak point. The Kryptorian shields flickered and died. Hawkins didn't hesitate. "Launch boarding pods. I'm leading the assault myself." His XO protested, but Hawkins cut her off. This was the only way to end the battle quickly before the Plaxans lost everything. He sprinted to the launch bay and piled into a pod with a dozen Marines. The pod streaked towards the enemy flagship and slammed into its hull. The Marines blasted their way onto the bridge, pulse rifles blazing. Kryptorian soldiers fell before the human onslaught. Hawkins fought his way to the command dais, where Admiral Zaxtar stood, hissing in fury. "Who dare challenge the might of the Kryptorian Empire?" Zaxtar snarled, drawing an energy blade. Hawkins raised his rifle. "I dare!" So they clashed in a whirlwind of steel and plasma, human strength against Kryptorian speed. Hawkins took a glancing blow to the shoulder but pressed forward. He battered Zaxtar back with relentless strikes. "Call off the attack," Hawkins demanded, "or I'll send you to hell myself." Zaxtar spat blood. "I will never yield to a human." Hawkins slammed the butt of his rifle into Zaxtar's face. The Kryptorian reeled. Hawkins kicked him to the deck and leveled his gun. "Yield." Zaxtar glared venomously but keyed his calm. "All ships withdraw. The humans have earned a reprieve for now." The Kryptorian ships broke off their assault and vanished into hyperspace. Hawkins sagged in relief. They had bought the Plaxans time, but at a cost. The once gleaming Plaxon cities were blasted ruins. Countless dead littered the streets. The Relentless landed, and her crew rushed to aid the survivors, pulling them from the rubble and triaging the wounded. Prime Minister Kelzik approached Hawkins, his robes tattered and stained. "You saved us from annihilation. We are forever in your debt." Hawkins clasped Kelzik's hand. "No debts between friends. Will help you rebuild." "You are kind, but know this. The Kryptorian Empire is vast, and they do not forget humiliation. They will seek vengeance upon you and your people." Hawkins met Kelzik's gaze steadily. "If they come for us, we'll be ready. Earth doesn't abandon its allies. The Relentless and her crew remained for weeks, repairing, healing, preparing. The battle was won, but Hawkins knew the Kryptorians would return, and when they did, humanity would stand against them. News of the Relentless's triumph over the Kryptorians spread like wildfire across the galaxy. Encrypted transmissions, hushed whispers in seedy cantinas, and bold declarations in the halls of power all carried the same message. The humans had done the impossible. They had beaten back the Kryptorian war machine and saved the Plaxons from extinction. For the first time in generations, the species living under the Kryptorian yoke dared to hope. If the humans could stand against the Empire, then perhaps there was a chance for freedom after all. In 100 different languages, on 1,000 different worlds, the name James Hawkins became a rallying cry, a symbol of defiance against tyranny. The Plaxons were the first to honor their savior. Prime Minister Kelzik himself presented Hawkins with the highest award in Plaxon society, the Star of Valor, in a ceremony broadcast across the planet. "Captain James Hawkins," Kelzik declared, his voice trembling with emotion as he pinned the medal to Hawkins's uniform. "For your bravery, your sacrifice, and your unwavering commitment to the cause of justice, the Plaxon people name you a hero now and forever." The crowd erupted into cheers, chanting Hawkins's name. Human and Plaxon stood side by side, united in their triumph. But even as he accepted their accolades, Hawkins knew that his actions would have consequences. He was right. No sooner had the Relentless returned to Earth than Hawkins found himself standing before a disciplinary committee, his superiors glowering down at him from a high bench. "Captain Hawkins," Admiral Graves said, her voice sharp as a knife, "you stand accused of disobeying a direct order from UESF Command. You were instructed to avoid engaging the Kryptorians, and yet you led your ship and crew into battle without authorization. What say you?" Hawkins squared his shoulders and met Graves's gaze unflinchingly. "I say I did what was necessary to save innocent lives. The Plaxons were on the verge of annihilation. We were their only hope." "It is not your place to decide which orders to follow and which to disregard," Graves snapped. "The chain of command exists for a reason, Captain." "With respect, Admiral," Hawkins said, "there's a higher chain of command that supersedes any orders from UESF. It's the chain of moral obligation. When we see injustice, when we see suffering, it's our duty to act. We can't just turn a blind eye because it's convenient, or because we're afraid of the risks." There was a long, tense silence. Graves and the other admirals exchanged glances, their faces unreadable. Finally, Graves spoke again, her tone measured. "Your argument has merit, Captain Hawkins. The UESF has always stood for the protection of the innocent, but you must understand the gravity of your actions. By engaging the Kryptorians directly, you may have painted a target on humanity's back. We are not ready for a full-scale war with the Empire." "Then let's get ready," Hawkins said. He leaned forward, his eyes blazing with conviction. "The Kryptorian Empire is a cancer on this galaxy. They won't stop until every other species is ground beneath their heel. We have a chance here, a chance to build an alliance against them. The Plaxons are with us. Other races will join if we show them that resistance is possible. We can do this, Admiral. We can take the fight to the Kryptorians and end their tyranny once and for all." Another long silence. Then slowly Graves nodded. "Very well, Captain Hawkins. The UESF will support your efforts to build this alliance. But understand this, you are responsible for the outcome, whatever it may be." "I understand, Admiral, and I accept that responsibility." As he left the hearing room, Hawkins felt a sense of grim determination settle over him. The path ahead would be long and hard, fraught with danger and uncertainty, but he knew in his bones that it was the right path, the only path. He returned to the Relentless and gathered his crew. They had work to do, emissaries to send, supply lines to establish, intelligence networks to build. The war against the Kryptorian Empire had only just begun, and James Hawkins would be at the vanguard every step of the way. Emperor Zorgan the Conqueror sat upon his throne of obsidian and bone, his eyes smouldering with rage, as he watched the footage of the battle over the Plaxon homeworld. The humans, those upstart primates from a backwater planet, had dared to defy the might of the Kryptorian Empire. They had aided the Plaxons, destroyed Kryptorian ships, and humiliated Admiral Zaxtar. Such insolence could not go unpunished. "General Kravak," Zorgan bellowed, his voice echoing through the cavernous throne room. "Attend me." Kravak, a towering figure clad in jet-black armor, strode forward and knelt before the Emperor. "What is your bidding, my lord?" "You have seen what the humans have done," Zorgan growled. "They think themselves the saviors of the galaxy, champions of the weak and oppressed. They must learn the price of defiance." "I will crush them, my lord," Kravak vowed. "I will grind their bones to dust and scatter them among the stars." "No," Zorgan said, his lips curling into a cruel smile. "Crushing them is not enough. We must make an example of them. We must show the galaxy what happens to those who dare to stand against us." He leaned forward, his eyes boring into Kravak's. "You will take our finest ships, our most fearsome warriors, and you will lead them against the Plaxon homeworld. You will burn their cities, slaughter their people, and leave nothing but ashes in your wake. And when the humans come to their aid, as we know they will, you will destroy them utterly. Leave no survivors. Let their screams echo across the galaxy as a warning to all who would defy us." Kravak bowed his head. "It will be done, my lord." As Kravak departed to gather his forces, Zorgan settled back on his throne, a sense of dark anticipation rising within him. The humans had sown the seeds of their own destruction. Now it was time to reap the harvest. Anti-Tamabitu Fomis. On the bridge of the Relentless, Captain James Hawkins studied the star map, his brow furrowed with concern. The intelligence reports were clear. The Kryptorians were massing a huge invasion force, far larger than anything the Plaxons had faced before. Their target was obvious, the Plaxon homeworld, the site of their recent humiliation. "They're coming," Hawkins said grimly, "and they're coming in force." His XO, Commander Elena Vega, nodded. "The Plaxons won't be able to hold out against that kind of firepower. Not alone." "They won't be alone," Hawkins said. He turned to the comms officer. "Get me Prime Minister Kelzik and send a message to our allies. Tell them the time has come to make a stand." Over the next few days, ships from a dozen different worlds arrived in Plaxon space, sleek Andorian frigates, bulky Tellarite cruisers, even a few Vulcan science vessels, their weapons arrays hastily bolted on. They gathered around the Relentless, a ragtag fleet united by a common cause. Kelzik greeted Hawkins in the Plaxon command center, his face lined with worry. "Our defenses are strong, but against a force of this size—" "We'll hold them," Hawkins said firmly. "We have to. We've come too far to let the Kryptorians win now." As the Allied fleet moved into position around the planet, the Kryptorian ships dropped out of hyperspace, a wall of metal and death that seemed to fill the sky. General Kravak's flagship, a monstrous dreadnought bristling with weapons, loomed at the center of the formation. "All ships engage at will," Hawkins ordered. "Protect the planet at all costs." And with that, the battle began. The void lit up with the flare of rockets and the flash of bombs. Ships on both sides erupted into balls of flame as they took devastating hits. Fighters swarmed and danced, locked in deadly dogfights. The Relentless shuddered as it traded blows with Kravak's flagship, its shield straining under the onslaught. On the planet below, Plaxon cities emptied as civilians streamed into underground bunkers. Planetary defense cannons roared to life, their beams stabbing up into the sky to swat Kryptorian landing craft from the air. But still, the invaders came on, an unending tide of death and destruction. In the midst of the chaos, a single Kryptorian shuttle broke through the defensive perimeter and headed for the surface, unnoticed in the melee. It carried General Kravak's secret weapon, a payload of unimaginable horror. As the battle raged in the skies above, the shuttle touched down in the heart of a Plaxon city. Its ramp lowered, and a team of black-clad Kryptorian soldiers emerged, each one carrying a bulky canister. They fanned out into the empty streets, their faces grim beneath their helmets. At a signal from their leader, they activated the canisters, which began to hiss and spew clouds of sickly green gas. The bioweapon, a genetically engineered plague of Kravak's own design, spread rapidly through the city, seeping into homes and bunkers. Plaxons collapsed, choking in the streets, their bodies convulsing as the virus ravaged their systems. Within minutes, the city was a charnel house, the streets piled high with the dead and dying. And the plague was spreading, carried on the wind to other cities, other population centers. The Plaxon homeworld, which had endured so much, now faced an enemy it could not fight. On the Relentless, a horrified silence fell over the bridge as the sensors detected the bioweapon's deployment. Hawkins gripped the arms of his chair, his face a mask of anguish. "God help us," he whispered. "God help us all." The rage burned hot in Hawkins's chest as he watched the Plaxon cities wither under the onslaught of the bioweapon. Millions dead, an entire civilization brought to its knees, all because of the Kryptorians' cruelty. No more, this ended now. "Helm, bring us about," Hawkins ordered, his voice hard as steel. "Set a course for the Invincible. We're going to board that ship and end this once and for all." The Relentless surged forward, its engines roaring as it closed in on the Kryptorian flagship. Hawkins gathered his boarding party, a hand-picked team of his best fighters. They armed themselves with plasma rifles and vibro swords, grim determination etched on their faces. "This is it, people," Hawkins said as they prepared to board the assault shuttles. "We're going to make that bastard Kravak pay for what he's done. No mercy, no quarter. Let's send these Kryptorian scum back to the hell they came from." The shuttles launched, weaving through the chaos of the battle towards the Invincible's hangar bay. Kryptorian fighters swarmed to intercept them, but the Relentless's gunners kept them at bay with a hail of covering fire. They touched down hard, the shuttle's ramps slamming open to disgorge the boarding party. Hawkins was first out, his rifles spitting plasma as he charged forward. Kryptorian soldiers poured into the hangar, but the humans met them head-on, blades flashing and guns roaring. It was a brutal, bloody fight, but Hawkins and his team pushed forward, carving a path of destruction through the ship's corridors. They fought their way to the bridge, leaving a trail of Kryptorian corpses in their wake. The bridge doors exploded inward, and Hawkins stormed through, his rifle leveled at the figure standing at the center of the room. General Kravak, his black armor splattered with blood, turned to face them, his eyes burning with hate. "You dare to challenge me on my own ship, human?" Kravak snarled, drawing his own sword. "I will tear you apart and feast on your entrails." Hawkins lowered his rifle and stepped forward, his own sword hissing from its sheath. "I challenge you, Kravak, one-on-one for the fate of the Plaxons. If I win, your fleet withdraws and never returns." Kravak laughed, a harsh grating sound. "And if I win? Then we surrender, and you can do with us as you wish." Kravak's eyes narrowed. "You have courage, human. I will grant you the honor of dying by my hand." They circled each other, blades gleaming in the light of the bridge. Then with a roar, Kravak charged, his sword a blur of motion. Hawkins met him head-on, their blades clashing in a shower of sparks. Back and forth they fought, the ring of steel on steel filling the air. Kravak was strong, his blows raining down like hammer strikes, but Hawkins was fast, dodging and weaving, striking back with lightning-quick thrusts. Hawkins ducked under a slashing blow and lunged forward, his blade finding a gap in Kravak's armor. The Kryptorian roared in pain, black blood seeping from the wound. But he kept fighting, his attacks growing more frenzied, more desperate. In the end, it was Hawkins's speed that won out. He feinted left, then spun right, his blade flashing up to slice across Kravak's throat. The general stumbled back, his hands clutching at the wound, his eyes wide with shock. "Yield," Hawkins panted, his sword point hovering over Kravak's heart. "It's over." For a long moment, Kravak glared at him, hate and rage burning in his eyes. Then slowly he let his sword fall from his grasp. "I yield," he growled. "The Plaxons are yours." Hawkins nodded, then keyed his comm. "This is Hawkins. Kravak is defeated. The Kractorians are withdrawing." Cheers erupted over the comm as the Kractorian fleet turned and fled, jumping away into hyperspace. On the planet below, the Plaxans emerged from their bunkers, blinking in the sunlight, hardly daring to believe that the nightmare was over. In the days that followed, the Allied fleet helped the Plaxans rebuild, bringing in supplies and medical aid. The dead were mourned, the cities slowly brought back to life, and through it all, Hawkins and his crew were hailed as heroes, their names spoken with reverence by Plaxans and aliens alike. But even as they celebrated their victory, Hawkins knew that the war was far from over. The Kractorian Empire was still out there, still a threat to every free species in the galaxy. There would be other battles, other challenges to face. But for now they had hope, they had each other, and they had the knowledge that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, united in their determination to bring light to the darkness and justice to the stars. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.